Hi there, my name is Jimmy Bonero, and in this video we're going to look at how we can script the OnFind event for a Xerox EIP Connect capture component. I've already got a project folder that's set up that will hold my config file. I've already created a configuration file which we'll be looking at in just a second. This is just a starting point. Another folder here, it's going to hold my code files, and we don't have anything in here, but we're going to be building that in this video. And I have some sample data in the form of a text file that we'll be tapping into. And then the output folder here is just where a scan would go or be routed to, and then I've got a work area already set up. So let's take a look at the config file, and I've got it pretty much very basic. We'll open up the Xerox component and we'll take a look at this list field OnFind form that I've already created. All I've basically done is assigned it a name, and I've provided a field that we're calling list field. The type is list, and I'm going to go to the properties for this, and you'll notice that we can certainly load up some items in here as part of the configuration, but in the case of dynamically wanting to load a list from any kind of data source, a database, make a web services call, maybe even populate items from Active Directory. Wherever the data source is, there's an OnFind or a search button that we could use to search for those items. You'll notice that we have one option here that's grayed out at the moment, and it's called raise event after pressing the search button, and this is what we're actually going to be scripting. And you'll notice that I don't have it enabled here for really one reason, and by the way, we're going to leave that unchecked, and that's because when I come to dynamic form, when dynamic form is not enabled, then that is an option that is not available to us. So with this checked, if I go back into fields and I come into list properties, you'll notice that now this is available. However, when I have this checked and I try to click OK with nothing loaded in here, I need to have at least one item inside of the list. Now, in order for me to work with that search button, this needs to be enabled, and we can't enable it if we don't put something in here, but that's okay. We're going to just uncheck that, and I'm going to click cancel for now. What we can do is we can dynamically enable that during the loading of the form. So we're going to want to raise event when the form is loaded. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on edit script code, and the first thing I get is a standard template to start building my script, and there are two events that are placeholders for form on load and form on submit. Load will be whenever this form is loaded up, we can execute some code that's in here, and then on submit would be when the user presses the start button, we might want to enable or run some additional code before the document actually gets scanned. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is let's go ahead and get the form on load section taken care of. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare the list field that we're working with, so we can enable the raise find event property for it. So I'm going to call this F list field, and we're going to declare it as a list field. And because we're bringing one of the arguments in the form on load event of event data, we're going to use event data dot form dot fields, and then we're going to use the get field method. In here, we would use the name of the field that we're trying to work with. In this case, I used the name list field as the actual field name. So now that that's declared, what I can do is I can say F list field, which is declared as a list field. I can set the property to raise find event. And by setting that to true, I'm essentially enabling that. All right, so now that that's done, the next thing we need to do is we need to create an event for the OnFind event. And what we do is we use the name of the field that we're trying to work with underscore OnFind. Make this bigger. Now, the other thing we want to do is within this, we want to use more or less, we want to bring the same argument in for event data. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to declare the list field in that event just like we did with the onload event. So we declare the list field, and when we're working with a list field, in general, it's always a good idea to remove any of the list items that are present inside of it. And to do that, what we do is we say flist field, which we've already declared as a list field, and we take the properties and use the clear method. Then the next thing that we need to do we need to take the information that the user enters into the search field and basically collect that. So what I'll do is I'll declare a new variable called sSearchText. And within event data, we can say that the search criteria is where we're going to gather whatever the user typed into the search field. Now we'll use a try catch block to actually perform the searching. Now again, our sample data that we're using is simply just a text file, so I'm going to go ahead and get that started. And we'll come to data, and we're going to use sample.txt. And we want to know if the line that's inside of the text file contains any of the text that the user is searching for. Normally when we are working with a list field, if I say flist field and I say that I want to use the add method to actually start loading up for each line each of those different items here, I would normally just say I want to do items.add, and then I would say new list item. And there are three areas. There's the value, the display, and then there's the information. To keep things simple, I'm simply going to say that the value and the display and the information are going to be the value of the line that I'm going through. And I'm doing that on the condition that if that line contains any of that text that's being searched for, then I want you to load the the list items up. Alright, when I compile this I don't get any errors, so let me save this into our code files and we'll give it the name Xerox.listonFind. Alright, so I've got my code file there saved. I'm going to close this out, and when the form is loaded we're going to raise that event. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and we'll save our config and we'll start the service. Now I have an emulator that will show us what's going on the Xerox screen, and I've got my list field on Find button. When I select that and I go to list field, you'll notice that I don't have anything in here, which is fine. What I want to do is, using this search button that's on the panel, this is how I want those items to be loaded inside of the list. So when I change the value of this, and I'm going to go ahead and type in a little bit of search criteria, JO. In fact, why don't we do this real quick? We'll just open up our sample, which I don't have a whole lot of stuff in here, but I've got enough to at least give us a search, and I've got like John Smith, Mary Jones, and so if I'm looking for JO, I should get at least a couple of hits. So I'll move this down, and if I type in JO and I press done, you'll notice that nothing gets entered into the list. However, when I press the all button, you'll notice that I actually got 3 results, all containing the letters JO. Now there's a reason for that, and we're going to fix this in just a second. When we load up the list items, those list items were loaded. However, we use the search button, and by using the search button, there's a different method that we need to use to get the search items loaded up. So let me go ahead and just click back. I'll click close, and we're going to stop the service. And when I come into our script, I want to come right back down to our try block and go into the for statement, where I'm using the items.add method for this list field to actually add those items in. In the case of using that search button, when I go to event data and I go to event result dot search results, I want to take the search results that came back from the query and I want to add those in. And I'm basically going to add the same items that I used to build my initial items within the list. So I'll actually just comment this one item out. Alright, I'll go ahead and compile, click save, and click close. And we'll start the service. Now when I go into the list field and I do a search and I type in JO and I press done, I now get my items added in. So when I'm using the OnFind event, when I'm using this search button up here, I need to take event data.eventresult.searchresults.add and actually add the items in that way. Now I'm able to select the item, which I can see is the label John Smith, and then the details here, this would have been the information. So when we add line, comma, line, comma, line, comma, the value is John Smith, the display that the user sees is John Smith, and the information is also John Smith. So I'll select John Smith, press done, and here I've got the item already added. So I hope that this has been informative, and until next time, thanks for watching.